Oh, hi everyone. This is Laurel, and I'm here with Jennifer Brown, Esquire.
Hello.
Um, so, um, Jennifer, you're what you would call a trust attorney or a probate attorney. How do you say that? What you do?
Yeah, it's interchangeable. Estate planning attorney, sometimes people don't even know what estate planning is. So probate, yeah. So pretty much, you nailed it.
Okay. And for those of you who know, I've been bringing attorneys on to talk about different aspects of the California probate estate trust system for a reason. Why? Because unless you hate your children, you probably need a trust. But I want to go through some specific aspects of it with you, Jennifer, because I know you kind of have your own specialty and your own take on things. And you're now in your own private practice.
Mm-hmm.
So first question I have, if I die and I have a will, is that enough here in California?
Well, the famous answer that a lot of attorneys give is it depends. So really the answer is it revolves around the nature and value of the assets that people own. If somebody is, renting and they've got a couple of bank accounts and they don't have real estate, yeah, a will could potentially be enough to avoid probate. On the other hand, if someone owns a home, then it's questionable. We do have some mechanisms, particularly what's called a transfer on death deed, which some people can utilize to transfer real estate after death without like a living trust, for example. People who have that in place, a will would be sufficient. But that it depends, and it's worthwhile checking into to make sure on each person's situation if they're covered with just a will.
Okay. Now, one of the things that if you have minor children,
Mm-hmm.
what specifically? So you're an estate planning attorney, right?
Yes.
Right. So kind of the things I'd like to talk about today too are children
Mm-hmm.
and small businesses.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And kind of what mechanisms really need to happen and what are like the minimum. If you have small children and a small business and a house, what should you have? What should you be thinking about? I know knowing it depends.
Yeah.
What should you be thinking about?
Yeah.
And to be covering in these wills, these paperwork, living trusts, durable powers of attorney, everything.
Exactly. Somebody in that situation with a little bit more going on, a business, small children, real estate, an estate plan is definitely appropriate for them. Okay, so what's an estate plan? Well, it could be comprised of not only a living trust, but a will for guardianship. That's where we appoint guardianship for minor children, financial powers of attorney, medical powers of attorney, depending on the type of business they have. How do we make sure the business succession plan is set up? So it gets a little bit more complicated. The more complicated somebody's, kind of life circumstances are. But it seems like it could be overwhelming, but it really isn't. It's just knowing what needs to be put in place, if that makes sense.
Okay. Now, if you have if you don't have any real estate or anything, is it worth making a will? Is there a purpose for that?
Yeah, absolutely. Because, a will we call it a dispositive instrument, meaning it's a way for you to control who gets your assets, who, after you die, is entitled to it. So people don't make a will. We do have the probate code in California that says who are your rightful heirs, but it goes along the family lines of succession. So if you're an unmarried, you're in an unmarried partnership and you want your partner to inherit your assets, okay, you need to make a will. Or a friend, somebody who's maybe not, some people don't want their kids to inherit, they're estranged or whatever. So a will is still good to have, but again, in certain circumstances, if that makes sense.
Right, because otherwise you get the family by law, not the family by choice, right?
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
Okay. So one of the things, I mean, I have a question that's supposed to elicit this answer, but I think that if you need to sit down with your heirs, your trustees, your beneficiaries, and make sure that they know where your will is and all that stuff. So how do you handle that?
Yeah, that can be a bit tricky. You know, I'm actually dealing with that right now. A property, the family, it's in a trust. They have no idea where the trust is, and so sometimes though communication with family members, heirs, loved ones is really not on the plate. They don't want them to know that they have documents in order because they're not in them, you know. But the reality is, if somebody makes either a will or a trust, it is kind of good protocol to let at least the executor or the trustee, that person you're nominating, let them know you made this instrument, where you keep it. Because the reality in California, we don't have like a public registry where we record those documents. There are private documents. Now, we've got rules in place in the probate code where after someone dies, then there's certain elements like a will gets lodged with the court within 30 days, or trust beneficiaries have a right to a copy. But if you don't know where the dang instrument is, that can be problematic, you know. So
it's huge. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It is huge. It is huge. And there are lots of times where we have to take estates through probate because we don't find a will, you know, and then maybe somebody inherits who wasn't supposed to inherit. So it's important to let those people know if you've made that instrument.
No, if an attorney does a trust, aren't they supposed to keep a copy of it and stuff?
Yes. Well, I know I do. After each client comes in and we finish their estate plan, they take the originals, we scan and have an entire, you know, signed copy of everything. But there was a time in history before scanners were in place where, you know, maybe the attorney kept a copy, maybe they didn't. Maybe they kept the originals and gave the clients copies. So it does get a little bit dicey depending on, or maybe people did their own estate plan. And
online, right? LegalZoom,
yeah,
right?
yeah, and they never gave anybody something. So it can be a little tricky. So
yeah, I've had that more than once, by the way.
Yeah.
More than once. And then what do you do? Because, you know, escrow companies need the trust.
Yep.
You can't transfer property without the right back them up.
No, exactly.
So what is the very best thing that a person can do, especially if they don't want their estate going through probate?
Well, make sure that you've got the proper designations lined up on your various assets. So if people, you know, don't have real estate, okay, make sure you have beneficiary designations on your accounts. Or if you are, you know, in co-ownership on an account, know that if you die, it will go to that other co-owner. So that's one way. You know, with the 401k, easy peasy, put a beneficiary on it. If you have real estate, then it would be good to seek the advice of an attorney. You know, a lot of estate planning attorneys, myself included, we do complimentary consultations about estate planning. People come in, we figure out what they have in place, make a recommendation, give them their price point. They don't have to necessarily work with us, but getting that understanding of what's appropriate for the situation, that there's a lot of value to that. So understanding what would be needed if you have real estate to avoid probate, that's a good step.
Okay. And, you know, the other question right along that, how do I know if I should go to an attorney?
Yeah. I would say, you know, I like using this example a lot. Okay. If the brakes on your car were messed up, do you feel totally confident that you could put that car on the jacks in the driveway and fix the brakes and then drive around in the car? If you do, okay, great. If you've been a trustee or you have a background in this area and you feel like you can competently put together documents, okay, then yeah, you can do your own plan. It doesn't require an attorney to do a plan. But the worst thing is when you feel like you are covered and then something happens and these documents need to be relied upon and they're not adequate or not accurately done or not properly executed. That is a huge problem. And then the people who are trying to either help you while you're alive and incapacitated, or you're deceased, they're going to have to navigate the court system. So if you don't have, to kind of circle back on your question, if you don't have confidence on what these legal documents are and all of those aspects, then it might be good for you to work with an attorney.
Yeah. And, I've got to tell you, it's not just when you die. I'm working with a family right now where mom got dementia, was the victim of a violent crime,
Oh my gosh.
and had no trust, had nothing planned. And we had to get through a conservatorship. A daughter came flying back in, had no idea. They're not sophisticated people. And the bank is about to take the house, and we haven't been able to save the house because nobody did the right things with the paperwork. And it's been so long since anybody's made a house payment, and this particular bank won't mess with us. So they're going to lose their family home. We're still working on it. I think we're now to can the estate declare bankruptcy at this point to stop the sale? But
I'll tell you, it's like insult to injury. If somebody has an event that causes an incapacity, like a physical assault like that, or a death or a stroke, that's hard enough to deal with as a family, as a support person. But on top of that, when you're trying to help someone pay their bills or resolve a legal situation, and you don't have that paperwork to help you, and you have to deal with the court system just to try to help them, it is a nightmare. It's an absolute nightmare. And our courts, they are a necessity, but they're underfunded and they're backlogged. And it's just, like you said, if you hate your family, okay, then don't do anything. But if you want that help, yes, it's so worthwhile to just think ahead, get some insurance against all of that, get an estate plan in place. So.
Perfect. So, I'm just double checking to see if we have any questions. But, again, if you have a small business or you have children or you have a house, these are the times that you really need to create a plan. And, in fact, my wife and I just we've even done now, paid for our burial and everything, created the whole thing, bought our plots, everything. And obviously, as a small business owner, my trust is complicated. And I don't have any children to deal with, but my dog is dealt with in my will. So, you got to think about these things, right?
Yeah. So, and it doesn't have to be complicated. Some people are like, I don't really own that much. I don't need an estate plan. Even if people don't own much, think about what we do on a day-to-day basis, right? You pay your taxes, you file your tax return, you go to the bank, you pay your bills. What if you have a fight with Comcast, but you've had a stroke? Who's going to fight Comcast for you? Power of attorney, man. It's really simple. And even there's free statutory documents online. People can go to the Sacramento County Public Law Library website and execute free power of attorney, free medical directive, free will. These resources are available. But sometimes just having guidance to get you pointed in the right direction is helpful. So,
and you do a free consultation, right?
Yes. So don't be afraid to pick up the phone. Like having information, that the only thing it costs people is their time, right? So, and I know for me, that is part of my objective, at least when I consult with people. If they choose to work with somebody else or not work with an attorney, that's fine. Getting the message out, because I can't tell you how sad it is when I'm sitting in court and waiting my turn for whatever matter I'm there for, and listening to people trying to deal with these issues because they didn't get the legal assistance or they don't have the paperwork. It's really awful. It's really awful. So if there's anything I can do to help avoid that, of course, and I know a lot of my colleagues in our communities, in this community, feel the same way, like, let us get that information out to you guys. Give us a call.
Great. So, hey, Jennifer, thanks so much for being on the show with us and educating people. And everyone, thank you for tuning in. We really appreciate your time and your energy. And if you have any questions, you can always hit us up on Facebook or LinkedIn. Or DM us. I think that's the right word. And we'll definitely get you the right professional to help. Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Bye. Thanks, Laurel.